He's hearing things that run counter to his narrative. And he doesn't like that.
Call the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure to order. Pursuant to Committee Rule 6F, House Rule 11, Clause 2 HF, the chairman may postpone further proceedings today on any question of approving any measure or matter or adopting an amendment in which a recorded vote of the yeas and nays are ordered. I'd ask unanimous consent that the chairman be authorized to declare recess at any time during today's meeting. Without objection, that is so ordered. All rosters and checks have been distributed electronically, and paper copies are also available here in the hearing room. As a reminder, the committee may use an electronic voting system for any requested recorded votes. And today, the committee is considering approval of updated subcommittee rosters due to changes on the majority side, 2 General Service Administration Capital Investment and Leasing Program resolutions, and an amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 9497, the Water Resources Development Act. Finally, I'd ask unanimous consent for the committee to use an amendments roster for any items under consideration by the committee, and without objection, that is so ordered. Our first item of business today is the approval of revised subcommittee roster due to membership changes on the majority side. So I call up the subcommittee rosters for consideration. Without objection, the rosters will be considered as read, and I recognize myself for a quick statement. Pursuant to House Resolution 1381, Congressman James Gallagher, California, was appointed to the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure following Congressman Shreve's resignation from the committee to move to the Committee on Appropriations. I'm pleased to welcome the newest member of the House of Representatives, Congressman James Gallagher from California, to the committee. Mr. Gallagher will be joining the subcommittees on aviation, highways and transit, and railroads, pipelines, and hazardous materials. Mr. Gallagher recently won a special election to fill the seat previously held by our good friend Doug LaMalfa, for whom Mr. Gallagher served as a fellow. He also spent more than 10 years in the California State Assembly and is a 5th-generation rice and walnut farmer. This committee still has a lot of important work to do this Congress. Mr. Gallagher, we are glad to have you join us on the committee. Any further discussion? Go ahead, Mr. Gallagher, you want to say a few words?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that very nice introduction. Thank you for your leadership, and thank you to all the members of the Transportation Infrastructure Committee for the support you've already shown since I joined the committee just a few days ago. I'm grateful for that warm welcome, and I look forward to working closely with all of you throughout the year as we advance responsible bipartisan policies. I also want to acknowledge Congressman LaMalfa's long and effective service on behalf of the North State in California. He set a strong foundation for advocating for our water, our infrastructure, and rural community needs, and I'm committed to building on that great legacy as I step into this role. I'm excited to roll up my sleeves and get to work on aviation, rail, and highways subcommittees, and I want to thank the chairman and members for this great opportunity. We're just getting started, and I'm eager to contribute wherever I can. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask unanimous consent for the approval of revised subcommittee rosters due to membership changes on the majority side. Without objection, that is so ordered, and the revised subcommittee roster has been approved. Our next item for consideration are 2 resolutions for projects in the GSA Capital Investment and Leasing Program, and I'd ask unanimous consent to call up the resolutions in block, and they're now considered as read and open for amendment at any point. Without objection, that is so ordered. I recognize myself real quick for a statement. So the 2 GSA resolutions we are considering today include optimization programs for fiscal years 2025 and 2026. These prospectuses will fund critical projects that will ultimately reduce liability to the taxpayer, realize a return on property sales, and ensure space usage is consistent with requirements set in the Public Buildings Reform that we enacted in WRDA 2024. I want to thank Subcommittee Chairman Perry for his work on ensuring that these projects make sense to the taxpayer. And with that, I'd urge my colleagues to support these resolutions, and I now recognize Rick for his statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I support the 2 GSA resolutions before us today. Both resolutions support GSA's optimization program, which GSA introduced in FY25 to fund the work needed to maximize the federally owned portfolio and dispose of underutilized space. Projects to be funded include building renovations, space reconfiguration, and agency relocations. One of these resolutions amends a resolution passed by this committee in fiscal year 25 for a $150 million and adds an additional $104,710,000, which is equal to the amount already appropriated by Congress. The other resolution before us today provides these are big numbers, I'll let you read it, a lot more, which is less than GSA requested in FY26, but equal to what's already been appropriated by Congress. To ensure that optimization fund cannot be used to fund priorities not supported by this committee, as well, these resolutions include a new clause requiring GSA to provide updated spend plans prior to the expenditure of funds. With that, I support both resolutions, and urge my colleagues to do the same.
Any other members wish to be heard? Scaramundi.
Mr. Chairman, on the resolution, I rise in strong opposition to this GSA resolution. And let's be very clear about what we're considering today. This isn't just about moving offices around federal buildings. This is about whether Congress is going to rubber stamp another step in the Trump administration's effort to dismantle the Department of Education. The administration has already illegally cut more than 1,500 employees in the Department of Education and moved various functions to other agencies. The department's own Inspector General says these cuts have undermined its ability to do the job Congress has assigned it. Now, they're using these cuts as an excuse to take away the department's headquarters. Let's be clear. If they close their offices, we may not be able to rebuild the Department of Education, even if the Democrats win back Congress and the White House. That's not good governance. That's not cost savings. That's manufacturing a problem just to justify an outcome that they wanted all along. That is the destruction of public education in this country. Taxpayer dollars aren't being used to strengthen the nation's education systems or to help our students to succeed. They're being used to make it harder for any future Congress and administration to restore the Department of Education to its full strength. This year's the president's budget requests includes billions of dollars in cuts to America's public schools and universities. Meanwhile, the president has requested a 35% increase for nuclear weapons programs in the Department of Energy, which is the department that is to move into the Department of Education's headquarters. This year, the administration's requested $98 billion for nuclear weapons and only $75 billion for the entire Department of Education. Should we compare that? Yes, we should. We should consider our priorities. It's bad enough that Trump wants to spend more money on weapons than on education, but we should not be complicit in this process. We should also be very much aware that there's discussion that the Department of Ed will move to some other building somewhere else in this city. Well, maybe that's true, but that's not in this resolution. It's not anywhere near it. So let's be very, very clear about this. This administration wants to dump the books, burn the books, and build the bombs. That's where this is all going. So step back for a moment. Take a look at what we're doing here. We are eviscerating the education role of the federal government in the universities, in support for students, and in research and beyond. If this committee approves this resolution, we've allowed one more irreversible step towards dismantling the Department of Education. I urge my colleagues to oppose this resolution for those reasons. I yield back.
Eleanor.
I strongly support this resolution. I have worked for more than a decade to dispose of the Department of Energy headquarters to facilitate the development of the Southwest Federal Center into a thriving mixed-use neighborhood, which will generate tax revenue, housing, and amenities for the District of Columbia. This resolution is necessary to begin the disposal of the Department of Energy's headquarters. While I strongly oppose the Trump administration's illegally dismantling of the Department of Education, this resolution is about the Department of Energy, not the Department of Education. The Department of Education will be leaving its headquarters and moving a block away. into a federal leased vacant 12-story Class A office building at 500 D Street, regardless of whether the Department of Energy leaves or stays in its current headquarters, the Forrestal Building. The General Services Administration confirmed in writing yesterday that it has existing funding and authority to move the Department of Education to 500 D Street, and that the Department of Education's move is not contingent on the outcome of this resolution. In short, voting no on this resolution blocks the Department of Energy, not the Department of Education, from moving. I urge members to vote yes on this resolution.
Representative Larson.
Yeah, just to clarify something. The resolution in particular, we're addressing these en bloc, but the one in particular that they're discussing is listed as POP 001 MU26, the second one, just for members' clarification on that. Thanks. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Seeing no one, are there any amendments to the GSA resolutions in block? Hearing, yeah,
Are you proposing an en bloc vote here?
we've already adopted that. Nobody objected.
We did.
Hearing none, the question is now on adoption of GSA resolutions en bloc. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed signify by saying nay.
Nay.
The opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
Why don't we have a vote here?
Recorded.
Recorded vote.
Gentleman requests a recorded vote on GSA resolutions en bloc. As previously announced pursuant to Committee Rule 6F, further proceedings on the question will be postponed. Our next item for consideration is H.R. 9497, the Water Resources Development Act of 2026. This is our word of bill. I'd ask unanimous consent to discharge the Subcommittee on Water Resources and Environment from further consideration of H.R. 9497 without objection. That is so ordered. I now call up the bill for consideration without objection. The first reading of the bill is dispensed with. The bill is now considered as read and open for amendment at any point. Recognize myself to offer an amendment in the nature of a substitute. Clerk, please designate.
An amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 9497, offered by Chairman Graves.
Without objection, the amendment in the nature of a substitute shall be considered as read and shall be considered as the base text for further amendment. I recognize myself for 5 minutes for a quick statement. Today, we are considering the Water Resources Development Act of 2026, proudly continuing the biennial tradition of advancing word of bills in this committee. As Congress marks the 7th consecutive Congress to consider worded legislation since returning to a regular 2-year schedule in 2014, and I'm proud that this committee continues to find common ground and work together to develop this very crucial piece of legislation. Consistent WRDA authorizations allow for the Army Corps of Engineers to build and maintain safe and reliable water infrastructure across the country, keeping the nation's waterways navigable, our neighborhoods protected, and maximizing the benefits of water resources for all Americans. WRDA is a member-driven process, and I'd like to recognize the nearly 350 members that submitted requests for this year's WRDA process. This year, we received over 2,000 member submissions, and these submissions are an essential part of the process that guide the committee in developing a bill that addresses the water infrastructure needs across the country. This bill maximizes the Corps' ability to work with non-federal sponsors to study and construct major water infrastructure projects across the country by streamlining the Corps' processes, empowering local stakeholders, and enhancing infrastructure resilience throughout our nation's inland and coastal waterways. For Missouri, this bill takes action to strengthen our flood control system by expanding the ways our levee owners can work with the Corps to provide resilient flood risk infrastructure for our communities along the inland waterways. WRDA 2026 provides necessary streamlined assistance to levee districts facing realignment and maintenance changes. Further, the bill strengthens Missouri's representation in the Missouri River management through interstate collaborations like a new Upper Missouri River Basin sedimentation study. WRDA 2026 makes targeted and common sense reforms to allow the Corps to deliver resilient infrastructure through the country that will enhance our nation's navigable waterways, solidify our flood risk management infrastructure, and protect our waters. Our nation just celebrated its 250th birthday, and this bill authorizes the Corps to make important investments in building and expanding our nation's infrastructure to prepare for the next 250 years. And I'd like to reiterate my thanks to Subcommittee Chairman Mike Collins and Ranking Member Larson and Subcommittee Ranking Member Wilson for their work in continuing the bipartisan tradition of considering WRDA bills in this committee. And I now recognize Rick for his statement.
Thank you. In the interest of time, moving things along, I have an excellent seven-page statement that I will send to anybody who wants a copy of it. Marilyn Strickland's on the record for that. But I would encourage folks to support the bill, and let's get moving. With that, I yield back.
Anyone else? Representative Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your leadership and support also in developing this important piece of legislation. I'd also like to thank my colleagues, Ranking Member Larson and Ranking Member Wilson, for their partnership in developing the Water Resources Development Act of 2026. This bill would not be possible without the input from my colleagues throughout the House of Representatives, and I'm proud to say that this bill addresses the water resource needs of communities throughout the country, from Lake Lanier in Georgia to the Port of Long Beach in California. As chairman of the Water Resources and Environment Subcommittee, I've had the opportunity to travel across the country to visit dozens of Corps projects, learn firsthand what it is to take to build resilient infrastructure, and hear what these projects mean to local communities. I stood atop the Addicks and Barker reservoirs in Texas. I walked through the Rio de la Plata in Puerto Rico, and I toured the Chickamauga Locking Dam in Tennessee. These experiences have reinforced my understanding of the Corps' mission and the importance of ensuring our nation continues to invest in safe, resilient, and future-ready infrastructure. The water process is a grassroots effort. At its heart, this bill starts with our local communities, and we thank all of the nearly 350 congressional offices that did the outreach and made their constituents' voices heard in developing this bill. Following the Trump administration's historic announcement, building infrastructure, not paperwork, WRDA 2026 makes targeted improvements to the Army Corps, limiting the federal overreach and empowering local communities to make resilient infrastructure investments. American ports, harbors, and intercoastal waterways are the nation's economic backbone. WRDA 2026 empowers the Corps to enhance our waterways, which are vital for the nation's economic strength, reliable supply chains, and commercial navigation. WRDA 2026 delivers for Georgia and the country as a whole. This bill strengthens several programs and establishes an office to expand alternative delivery methods within the Corps. Alternative delivery methods provide non-federal sponsors greater flexibility to work with the Corps and get projects done faster. Further, this bill protects our economy and reduces the risk of interruptions to commercial navigation by providing the Corps necessary flexibility and implementing dredge material managed projects. I'm especially proud that this bill expands on the Corps' ability to contract with local law enforcement to help protect life and property at recreation areas such as campgrounds. By empowering local communities, we are shifting power away from Washington and toward the states, local sponsors, and property owners. H.R. 9497 makes targeted reforms to reduce federal bottlenecks and gives locals a seat at the table to drive project priorities. These are just a handful of the many ways WRDA 2026 invests in America. Again, I want to thank Chairman Graves, Ranking Member Larson, and Ranking Member Wilson for their hard work in putting this bill together. I also want to thank my fellow committee members for their contributions to the water process. And I urge my colleagues to support this bill and yield back my time.
Ms. Titus.
sorry, I didn't understand you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairman, Ranking Member Larson, and your staffs for working to negotiate this strong bipartisan bill. It does address, as you heard, water challenges in all regions. I'm especially concerned about the arid Southwest. I represent the heart of southern Nevada, and if you're familiar with my district, you know that water is the cornerstone of lives and livelihoods. But both are at risk now because of the prolonged drought and increasing aridity in the Colorado River Basin. On average, natural flows from the tributaries of the Colorado River are 20% less today than they were in the last century. Year after year, the communities along the river consume more water than is available. And despite that truth, states have yet to come to an agreement for what will happen when the operating guidelines for the river expire this year. So we need to use all the tools that we have to conserve water and mitigate this crisis. While this may be seen as a Western issue today, more and more communities are going to be experiencing prolonged droughts and water insecurity as the climate continues to change. That's why I'm glad that WRDA 2026 strengthens the Army Corps of Engineers' role in protecting our water supplies. For example, it includes provisions I championed to create an Office of Water Supply, Water Conservation, and Drought Resilience. Having dedicated staff at the Army Corps focused on water supply issues will make a world of difference going forward. The bill also establishes a new continuing authority for the Corps to carry out small-scale projects for drought resiliency. And it directs the Army Corps to consider the impact of data centers on water supply and conservation projects. This is an increasingly important issue that we see in the news today. Consider that about 2/3 of the upcoming data centers are slated to be built in regions experiencing drought. Communities want transparency about how this influx of data centers is impacting their water supply. Just last week, the Bureau of Land Management managed to green light a data center in my congressional district without any public engagement. Now, while the bill before us today is not a silver bullet to deliver on transparency, it certainly starts the conversation at the federal level. I'm also pleased the bill includes provisions I championed to create a pilot program on using natural infrastructure in dryland streams in arid and drought-prone regions. This pilot program will be beneficial in Nevada, where 88% of streams are ephemeral. That includes our Amargosa River, which was recently labeled one of the country's most endangered rivers. I'm also proud to have carried provisions that made it in the bill that will help projects currently underway in Nevada, including the Truckee River Flood Management Project. Also are provisions to add projects that mitigate aquatic and invasive species to the list of authorized projects under the Tahoe Section 108 program. Invasive species like the New Zealand mud snail threaten Lake Tahoe and its bustling tourism and outdoor recreation area. In closing, I think there are great provisions in here that impact all of our districts. WRDA 2026 is a major step forward for a water policy, and I'm proud to support it, and I yield back.
Mr. Webster.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just would like to ask for unanimous consent to include a letter of support for the water bill from the Port of Tampa Bay.
Without objection. Mr. Carbajal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to add my voice in support of the Water Resource Development Act of 2026 before us today. WRDA is an important bipartisan bill we consider in this committee because it is how Congress helps make real investments in our communities. For my district in the Central Coast of California, I am proud that this bill delivers meaningful results. All 5 of the Section 219 environmental infrastructure projects I submitted were included in this legislation, totaling $66.5 million for communities across my district. That includes $30 million for the Los Olivos Community District to modernize critical wastewater infrastructure, $25 million for the city of Ojai to improve water reliability and environmental sustainability, $6.3 million for the city of Lompoc for essential water infrastructure improvements, $3.2 million for the Summerlin Sanitary District to upgrade aging wastewater systems, and $2 million for the city of Solvang to strengthen local water infrastructure. These may not be flashy projects, but they make a difference for everyday Central Coast residents. They mean cleaner water, safer communities, stronger drought resilience, and better quality of life for people we represent. I am also pleased that this bill authorizes the Army Corps to move forward with repairs to the Morro Bay revetment and seawall. This is a critical infrastructure that protects Morro Bay Harbor, supports maritime commerce, and safeguards the local economy. In addition, this legislation includes a directive to the court to prioritize the City of Lompoc's stormwater improvement study, which is essential to addressing flooding risks and improving public safety. Despite all the noise and posturing that happens in Washington, I am glad to be part of a process that shows that when we work together, we can bring federal resources home to help local communities. This is why I came to Congress, to deliver results for my constituents. At a time when families are facing higher utility bills and local water systems are struggling with aging infrastructure, we cannot afford to delay these investments. By helping communities modernize their water infrastructure now, WRDA can reduce costly emergency repairs, improve system efficiency, and help keep water costs more affordable for American families. I want to thank Chairman Graves, Ranking Member Larson, Chairman Collins, Ranking Member Wilson, and all of the staff for their work in putting together this strong bipartisan bill. I urge my colleagues to support its passage. Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Dr. Babin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member Larson, for your leadership for holding today's markup. I also want to thank Chairman Graves for his continued work on this legislation and his commitment to strengthening our nation's water resources infrastructure. We are here today to consider the Water Resources Development Act of 2026, a bipartisan bill that reflects Congress's longstanding commitment to investing in America's ports, waterways, flood control systems, and other critical infrastructure. Through WRDA, we provide the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers with the direction and tools that they need to keep our economy moving and our communities protected. This legislation has a significant impact on Southeast Texas. My district is home to some of the nation's most critical energy and maritime assets, including Port of Houston, the Houston Ship Channel, Cedar Port area, and communities that rely on efficient navigation infrastructure and strong flood protection. These assets support thousands of jobs, strengthen our nation's energy security, and help keep American commerce moving. I'm very pleased that this bill includes several provisions that will directly benefit Southeast Texas. By clarifying harbor maintenance trust fund allocation requirements for donor and energy transfer ports, authorizing the review of excess federal lands in Chambers, Galveston, and Harris counties, and expediting the Cedar Port feasibility study, this legislation will strengthen our region's infrastructure, support economic growth, and ensure Southeast Texas remains a critical engine of American commerce. These are meaningful improvements that will help move critical projects forward, strengthen our ports, and better serve the communities and industries that depend on them. Beyond Texas, this legislation strengthens the Corps' ability to streamline project delivery, reduce unnecessary bureaucracy, increase accountability, and give non-federal partners greater flexibility to advance locally driven projects. Strong ports and inland waterways are essential to our economy and vital to our nation's energy security, supply chain resilience, and long-term competitiveness. For years, WRDA has been one of Congress's most successful bipartisan efforts because it focuses on practical infrastructure investments that deliver lasting benefits to communities nationwide. I appreciate the work that has gone into this legislation, and I look forward to supporting its advancement today. And I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Stanton.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and to Chairman Graves and Ranking Member Larson and Committee Chairman Wilson, and actually Committee Chairman Collins and Ranking Member Wilson, I apologize. I appreciate your leadership in shaping this important legislation for our nation's water resources infrastructure. Our nation's infrastructure needs a shot in the arm. That's true for dams and washes as it is for roads and bridges. Nowhere is that clearer than in my home state of Arizona. Far too long, the federal government has failed to deliver long-term investments we needed to address decades-long drought and aging infrastructure. And Arizona's water security is tied up now more than ever in the ongoing Colorado River Compact negotiations. Colorado River, a critical piece of our water supply portfolio, is nearing a crisis point. The river's reservoirs are at historic lows due to hotter temperatures and little snow, putting critical hydropower infrastructure at risk. And even though Arizona uses less water today than it did 60 years ago, we'll have to make new sacrifices and significant investments to protect our water supplies and help communities hit hard by drought. I'm the only one from Arizona on this important committee. I'll make sure the federal government is a full partner as we address the challenges ahead. WRDA 26 offers us a real bipartisan opportunity to put that partnership to work. The bill advances strong drought resiliency provisions, a new Office of Water Supply and Drought Resilience, a new continuing authority program for small drought projects, and new authorities to tackle invasive species and restore water storage capacity. It includes 30 Arizona-specific projects, from Phoenix's Tres Rios ecosystem restoration work and to flood control efforts in Pinal County. This bill also builds on Arizona's own Environmental Infrastructure Authority that I created 6 years ago. This EI program extended a lifeline for our communities and tribal nations that are facing increasing uncertainty over their water supply. Today, we're adding another $151 million to that authority. Our communities are investing in water lines, wells, wastewater systems, aquifer recharge projects to stretch every drop of water as far as it can go. We funded 24 projects under the Arizona Environmental Infrastructure Authority, and according to the Corps, there's 40 more communities hoping their projects move forward next. But here's the frustrating reality. Of the more than 24 projects Arizona Environmental Infrastructure Authority funded, less than 10 have broken ground. That's unworkable. Our communities cannot wait years for projects that are needed today. The Corps has begun to streamline NEPA processes and expand categorical exclusions for EI projects. I'm committed to ensuring permitting processes do not delay and drive up costs for critical works. I've also fought for rural and tribal communities to have greater access to those investments. While this bill expands key partnerships, Congress must do more to eliminate barriers across programs and lower federal cost shares for communities that need assistance most. Speed, efficiency, and equity must be our standards as we go forward. So I look forward to working with the chair and ranking member to advance these common sense reforms. Arizona is facing a once-in-a-century challenge. WRDA 2026 is the water infrastructure boost that our communities need. So thank you to Ranking Member Larson, Chairman Graves, the Water Resources Subcommittee for your important work on this bill. And I'm glad to keep working together to make sure all Arizona communities, city, tribal, rural, can make the most of their water supply. Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Mr. Nels.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for recognizing me. The Water Resources Development Act has long been one of the best examples of Congress working to invest in America's infrastructure, strengthen our economy, and ensure the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has the tools necessary to keep our waterways, ports, flood control projects, and navigation systems functioning safely and efficiently. For Texas, this bill couldn't come at a more important time. The Texas Gulf Coast is one of the most economically significant regions in the United States. Our ports move hundreds of billions of dollars in commerce every year, support millions of jobs, strengthen our nation's energy security, and serve as critical gateways for both domestic and international trade. The Port Houston complex alone is one of the busiest ports in America, handling record volumes of cargo while serving as the backbone of our nation's petrochemical and energy industries. Our ports are essential to the strength of both the Texas and nation economically. That's why I work to ensure WRDA bill delivers meaningful results for Texas. Reliable water supply is essential to our nation's economy, our manufacturers, our communities, and our future. In Texas, we understand that firsthand. Approximately 33% of the nation's U.S. Army Corps water supply storage space is in Texas and is vital to meet growing water demands across the state and in my district. Anyone who has worked with the Army Corps of Engineers knows that projects can take decades to move forward. And I know the agency is taking steps to try to speed up these timelines
with their new Building Infrastructure, Not Paperwork initiative. The following provisions further support that. Section 101B creates a dedicated Office of Water Supply, Water Conservation, and Drought Resiliency to coordinate policy, improve communication with local partners, like the Brazos River Authority in my district, and help ensure the Corps fully implements the important water supply authorities Congress enacted in Subtitle B of Water 2024. Section 132 reinforces the need to maximize the use of existing authorities while explicitly recognizing municipal, industrial, and agricultural water supply, water conservation, and drought resiliency along the Corps' other missions. Together, these sections help turn this committee's vision of Water 2024 into real action for our communities. They elevate water supply and national conservation, make the Corps a better partner to communities across the country, and ensure we're using every available tool to strengthen American prosperity. I was proud to also secure several important priorities in this word of legislation. The bill directs the Army Corps of Engineers to expedite the feasibility study for the Matagorda Ship Channel, helping ensure the port of Port Lavaca, Point Comfort, can support continued commercial growth. It also clarifies harbor maintenance trust fund allocations to better ensure donor and energy transfer ports, including many in Texas, receive a fair return on the funds they generate. The legislation further requires a comprehensive study of the nation's inland and intercoastal waterways, establishes a new Office of Inland Navigation Construction Management to improve project delivery, and encourages more efficient multi-year contracting priorities. It also reauthorizes key core civil works authorities through 2030 and provides new environmental infrastructure authority for Brazoria, Fort Bend, and Galveston counties, while increasing existing authority for Amarillo to strengthen critical water infrastructure across Texas. Mr. Chairman, Texas continues to lead the nation in population growth, energy production, manufacturing, exports, international commerce. Our infrastructure must keep pace with that success. This word of bill makes smart investments that will strengthen navigation, improve project delivery, support economic growth, and ensure our ports and waterways remain globally competitive for decades to come. I appreciate the collaborative work that went into this legislation, and I look forward to supporting its passage. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Mrs. Sykes is recognized.
Thank you to the chairman and the ranking member for holding today's markup, and also a special shout out to Chair Collins and Ranking Member Wilson for their work on the subcommittee. Strong water infrastructure is something every community depends on, and I'm proud to have fought for the 7th consecutive bipartisan Water Resources Development Act reauthorization that will help address critical needs in Ohio's 13th congressional district, as well as across the nation. Chief among the policies in this bill is an additional $50 million authorization for environmental infrastructure authorities in my district. This investment will allow the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to provide their expertise to critical water and sewer infrastructure projects that improve our local communities and strengthen our economic competitiveness. Under the Summit County Environmental Authority, $50 million has been authorized to fund projects such as the Village of Lakemore Stormwater, Pond, and Water Treatment System programs, the Village of Richfield's new Stormwater Catch Basin project, the City of Fairlawn's Shockalog Run Fish Passage Restoration Project, and the City of Monroe Falls Cuyahoga River Signage Project. Under the Stark County New Authority, $49 million has been authorized to fund projects such as the Canton Cromer Water Storage Reservoir Replacement Project. There are also improvements to the Ohio Erie Canal, Lock 4 Park, and North Lawrence's Sanitary Sewer Project. This bill also includes a language ensuring the Army Corps of Engineers can repair the City of Massillon sluice gates under the Section 8152 program. This will resolve the flooding issues caused by the gates' deteriorating condition, an issue that the city has been trying to rectify for many years. Parts of my Water Reservoir Transparency Act that is being co-led with Rep. Skolton also made it into the bill. It would protect and strengthen water resources in Ohio and across the country by requiring the Army Corps of Engineers to assess how new commercial and industrial uses such as data centers are impacting water reservoirs. I thank Congresswoman Skolton for her leadership in this bill in addressing an issue that is impacting all of our congressional districts and communities across the country. Finally, the bill would expedite the Corps' finalization of beneficial use for the Port of Cleveland. That will speed up the creation of the 100-acre parkland and habitat greenway along Cleveland's Lake Erie shoreline, bringing additional construction jobs and economic activity to Northeast Ohio. While there's much to celebrate in this word, I want to convey to my colleagues that the authorization bills alone do not bring funding home to my district or yours without the necessary appropriations. And while I know it is not the jurisdiction of this committee to appropriate funds, I would encourage the Appropriations Committee to actually appropriate the funds that we authorize, as not funding it will push back the development and job growth of our communities by years and sometimes decades. This is not the end of the road, and I will continue to urge the House Appropriations Committee to fully fund the Summit and Stark County environmental infrastructure authorizations, as well all of the others that increase jobs, development, and affordable clean water. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields. Mr. Rouser is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. WARDA is one of the most important bills this committee considers, as it directly impacts communities across the country, especially coastal and flood-prone communities like mine in southeastern North Carolina. WARDA bills produced on a consistent 2-year cycle ensure the Army Corps of Engineers has the direction needed to implement the objectives of Congress to protect life, property, and strengthen our maritime infrastructure. So I'm especially pleased provisions for North Carolina's 7th District are in this bill, including authorization of the Surf City Coastal Storm Risk Management Project. This long-awaited beach nourishment project will help protect the Surf City community from future storms, flooding, and erosion. The project has been decades in the making, and after extensive study, review, and continued advocacy at the local, state, and federal levels, today's bill is a major milestone. So I especially want to commend Surf City's local leaders for their tireless commitment and advocacy. The bill also authorizes flood risk management feasibility studies for the Waccamaw River Basin around Whiteville, which continues to experience flooding issues in their lower downtown area, the Cross Creek watershed in Fayetteville, a major flooding risk through residential areas of that city, and the town of Topsail Beach to combat inland flooding from flood tides. The bill also authorizes a feasibility study for the water supply of the Cape Fear River and ecosystem restoration around Cumberland County. Additionally, the bill authorizes $40 million for water, wastewater, and stormwater infrastructure in White Lake. All these provisions will help protect homes, businesses, and communities throughout my district while strengthening resilience for the long term. I especially want to thank the chairman, the ranking member, the subcommittee chairman, and subcommittee ranking member for their great leadership to produce yet again another great WARDA bill holding true to the biennial process that has served this nation so well. I urge my colleagues to support this critical legislation, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Ms. Skolton is recognized.
Thank you, Chair Graves and Collins, Ranking Members Larson and Wilson, for your hard work in putting together a strong bipartisan WRDA. I am thrilled to support a 7th consecutive WRDA to address local water resources that are needed while tackling affordability and bolstering resiliency. One look at a map or a satellite image of our state will tell you that water is truly a way of life in Michigan. Families and friends come together to enjoy our Great Lakes. Communities are supported by jobs at our hardworking ports. Farmers need water to grow our famous specialty crops like Michigan cherries, blueberries, and apples. And this bill will protect Michigan's water resources for generations to come, something that benefits the entire country. I'm so proud of what I've been able to accomplish in this bill. WRDA 2026 includes a whopping $115 million in new environmental infrastructure authorizations between Kent, Ottawa, Muskegon, in my district, these counties in my district, as well as the state of Michigan, to invest in drinking water, wastewater, stormwater, and related infrastructure. I'm so proud of my Water Reservoir Transparency Act to assess commercial and industrial impacts on the Corps, particularly with respect to data centers. The bill also authorizes a critical watershed study for Muskegon River, expedites the completion of an erosion and shoreline protection projects in Muskegon Heights. WRDA 2026 ensures local collaboration on water resource projects, which will boost communication between the core, state, and local governments during maintenance dredging. This is essential for communities like Grand Haven, Michigan, where potential dredging delays have risked local jobs and potential detrimental impacts on our supply chain. The bill additionally looks after our Great Lakes communities by adjusting wage rates for employees at the Sioux Locks, reauthorizing the Great Lakes Commission, and tackling invasive species and plants. Finally, the bill reauthorizes FEMA's High Hazard Potential Dam Program, which is particularly important after Michigan's statewide flooding this year. Again, I am so proud of this committee's work on WRDA 2026. I'm excited to support this bipartisan effort and to ensure generations to come can enjoy more affordable, resilient water in the future. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields. I'll recognize myself for a brief statement. First, I want to thank Chairman Graves and Ranking Member Larson for holding this markup today, and I'm proud to speak in favor of the Water Resources Development Act of 2026. As this bill delivers sound investments to our nation's water infrastructure. In southeastern Ohio, some communities continue to face challenges in obtaining the necessary water infrastructure to supply running water in their communities. I'm proud that in the underlying bill, there are over $32 million in authorizations across southeastern Ohio, which, once funded, will help local communities with water supply, water storage, and wastewater treatment plant upgrades. This bill also establishes categorical permissions allowing for projects modifying Army Corps infrastructure to be constructed without the normal lengthy bureaucratic process. After many communities in my district struggled to obtain these permits from the Corps, I am proud to see these provisions included. I represent several counties along the Ohio River, which is one of the most vital inland waterways for the United States supply chain. Each year, the Ohio River transports roughly 270 million tons of cargo and connects critical energy markets to the Mississippi River, the Gulf of America, and the world. The Water Resources Development Act of 2026 makes sound investments in water infrastructure across southeastern Ohio, establishes programs vital to the Ohio River, like the Office of Inland Navigation Construction, and reforms the Army Corps operations to speed up project timelines. I'm proud to support the ANS and urge my colleagues to support this vital piece of legislation. I yield back and will now recognize Ms. Wilson.
Chair Graves, Ranking Member Larson, and Subcommittee Chair Collins, I'm proud to stand with you as we present the Water Resources Development Act of 2026 to the committee. When I discuss the Water Resources Development Act to my colleagues, I highlight the consistency and bipartisanship. When I first got to Congress in 2011, I noticed something about WRDA. There was no consistency. We saw WRDA in 1999 and 2000, but not another until 2007, and then not another until 2014. This inconsistency was unacceptable. So I gathered my fellow Floridians, Democrats and Republicans, and we formed the Florida Ports Caucus. We, as Floridians, advocated for our deep water ports, the Everglades, and a consistent WRDA cycle. We sat in the committee as one of the largest delegations, so I worked with Representative Posey, and we launched the caucus. Today, our bipartisan Florida Ports Caucus continues now with Mr. Herodopoulos as my co-chair. Now, 12 years after WRDA 2014, we sit here having passed a bipartisan WRDA into law every single Congress since 2014. I've seen the spirit of bipartisanship ensure that we can tackle big goals. In Florida, we have seen the importance of WRDA as we watch the creation of the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plant in WRDA 2000. And we see how far we have come in the last 26 years. And in this WRDA, I continue to see the commitment to the Everglades. We see additional commitments to the Everglades, including authorizations for the Lake Okeechobee watershed restoration and the Central Everglades Planning Project. I see commitments for both of my counties with the Broward County Back Bay Study, the Central and Southern Florida flood resiliency efforts, and an authorization for North Miami. And I saw commitments to my ports with both Port Everglades and Port Miami seeing key commitments in this bill. This WRDA delivers for all communities, large, small, rural, and urban. In this bill, we are authorizing the next generation of projects and studies. We are addressing affordability by supporting our economically disadvantaged communities, and we are actively addressing the resiliency needs that we are seeing nationwide. As this will be my last WRDA, I am extremely grateful for this committee. Being a member of TNI has allowed me to deliver for my community. As this committee plans for the next WRDA, both data centers and PFAS must be in focus. Around the country, we are seeing water resources at risk due to major data center construction. And with PFAS, the forever chemicals, we cannot continue to allow new forever chemicals while attempting to improve our environment. Still, I want to thank you all for this successful bill. And Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Gentlelady yields. Mr. Fuller is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Graves, Ranking Member Larson, Chairman Collins, Ranking Member Wilson, and colleagues, thank you for your leadership on maintaining the regular two-year WRDA cycle. I speak today in support of Sections 101B and 132, two provisions that elevate the role of water supply within the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. As our home state of Georgia has seen during its growth in recent years, reliable water supply from core reservoirs isn't a nice to have, it's a must-have. Allatoona Lake and the Lake Lanier districts in my district and our state have provided the foundation for our continued growth. These provisions help ensure the Corps has the tools to support growing communities, strengthen our economy, and secure America's water future. Unfortunately, Corps projects in recent years haven't been known for their speed. These provisions help change that. Section 101B creates a dedicated Office of Water Supply, Water Conservation, and Drought Resiliency. Section 132 reinforces the need to maximize the use of existing authorities while explicitly recognizing municipal, industrial, and agricultural water supply, water conservation, and drought resiliency alongside the Corps' other missions. Together, these sections help turn WRDA 2024 into action. They elevate water supply in the national conversation, make the Corps a better partner to communities across the country, and ensure we're using every available tool to strengthen American prosperity. We all rely on the staff here, and I appreciate Ryan Hamilton and his team at Water Resources and Nick Christensen and the full committee staff. I thank both Chairman Graves and Ranking Member Larson for their bipartisan leadership, and I urge my colleagues to support these important provisions. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
The gentleman yields. Ms. Poe is recognized.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Larson, and committee staff for your work to bring this legislation before us today. I strongly support this bill. Whether it's flooding, pollution, or treating wastewater, water policy impacts everyone. This is why it is vital that we pass this WRDA reauthorization. which provides over $6 billion in critical water investment. This bill provides funding for flood mitigation, environmental cleanup, and wastewater management, all issues that are critical for New Jersey. This bill also includes my Cleanup Act. Contaminated waterways like the lower Saddle River Basin in my district has long been avoided by the Army Corps of Engineers through federal help is absolutely desperately needed. My Cleanup Act allows the Army Corps of Engineers to finally tackle contaminated waterways so long as the projects comply with EPA's plan for each site. The flooding has continued too long, and I am proud that my bill will help resolve this while protecting our community and the conservation of our natural waterways. At the same time, this broader bill will also direct the Army Corps of Engineers to speed up the flood controls and mitigation projects for at least 8 projects in my district, in addition to expediting projects in the city of Clifton and the Hackensack Meadowlands as well. I am also excited that we were able to include in the manager's amendment the HATS East Riser construction authorization. This is a critical flood risk reduction project for New Jersey, and I am glad that we were able to secure this win. Prioritizing delayed projects like these in communities struggling with flooding is essential for families and businesses living with this threat. Additionally, today, we are establishing a new Office of Water Supply, Conservation, and Drought Resiliency, which will help the roughly 7.3 million New Jerseyans in drought-prone areas. This office will increase water supply, bolster emergency drought operations, and connect state and local governments to federal funding. For towns like mine with schools and homes bordering Passaic and Hackensack rivers, they know that when storms roll through, rivers surge, water levels rise, and it is ultimately residents who pay the price. This bill is a strong first step to make sure this doesn't keep happening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields. Mr. Gallagher is recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is my honor to support this WRDA today, as this is exactly why I came to Congress in the first place, to put a real focus on the rural communities of Northern California. It also highlights the real need to have representation, true representation in Northern California, so that these many communities have that focus and have real results. Someone who knows the issues and who lives and breathes the Sacramento Valley. Doug LaMalfa was that man, and I am happy to continue that work in this role. At the heart of Northern California, the lifeblood is the Sacramento River, which I grew up on. I grew up fishing those waters. Our farm relied on those waters to irrigate our crops. And this WRDA helps invest $155 million in that Sacramento River Basin, much needed projects from water and wastewater infrastructure that will help support water reliability, certainty that we will have that water in the future. Because all too often in California, our water rights are under attack. In fact, they currently are by the California government, by the Water Resources Control Board, by regulations. But this WRDA helps ensure those co-equal goals of ensuring water reliability and environmental restoration and sustainability on the Sac River are met by authorizing these investments. It also ensures surface water protection and long overdue upgrades in our rural communities. One of those rural communities is the town of Robbins. Most people probably wouldn't be able to pick it out on a map, but it's an important community. It's one of these small rural communities that needs investments. I started working with that community when I was a county supervisor. Today, this WRDA helps ensure wastewater sewer line replacement can happen in that community, much needed. And for rural communities across the state of California, across this great nation who need that investment. This bill directs the Corps to begin forecast-informed reservoir operations. What does that mean? It means better management of our water by ensuring that when we operate our dams and reservoirs, we're ensuring that we're using the latest technology and weather forecasting to ensure that we store as much of that water as possible, but also to be ready for releases when we have a large snowpack that could threaten communities downstream, as happened with Oroville Dam when we had a very wet season and that dam fell apart. This WRDA helps ensure that won't happen again, that we won't have those kinds of issues, because it is making an investment, for instance, in Black Butte Dam to ensure that those dam safety reviews are done on time and timely to ensure that our existing infrastructure, one, is maintained, but it's also operated to the maximum ability to make sure that we have water when we need it. I'm also proud that this WRDA ensures that that lifeblood will be there for the great crops of Northern California. I heard my colleague talk about some of the crops in her district, but peaches, prunes, walnuts, almonds, rice, tomatoes, alfalfa, all grown in that great Northern California that the world relies upon. This WRDA helps ensure that that investment maintains, and that doesn't just help my district, it helps people across this great world have food and nourishment now and into the future. I also want to highlight that this WRDA puts a focus on wildfire and on drought resiliency. We have had countless wildfires in Northern California. All over this WRDA is a focus on wildfire, on resiliency, on ensuring that we have drought relief as well, that we put a focus on making sure that we can be more resilient in droughts and these dry conditions. So many different fronts where this WRDA bill helps ensure investments in my district, but certainly throughout this great nation. And what I want to thank the chairman and the ranking member for is for making those investments, for hearing from all of us, but from hearing from this representative from Northern California, where all too often we are overlooked, and especially by our state government many times. But by having a voice here in this building, by having a true representative, we're able to secure these investments in rural California, and I am greatly thankful for this. This WRDA reflects what this committee does best: practical, community-driven solutions that strengthen infrastructure, that improve resiliency, and deliver real value to the people we represent. So I thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the ranking member, and all of the subcommittee chairs and staff who have put their work into this package. I'm proud to support it, and I look forward to continuing to work with you as we advance WRDA and the rest of the committee's agenda this coming year. Thank you, and I yield back my time.
Gentleman's time's expired. This chair recognizes Mr. Figures.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to Chairman Graves, Ranking Member Larson, Chairman Collins, and Ranking Member Wilson for spearheading, as my colleague, Representative Gallagher, just mentioned, what is best about this committee. This bill is a reflection of just that. Look, WRDA has long been one of Congress's best examples of bipartisan legislation, and I appreciate the committee's continuing of that tradition here in my first term. For Alabama's 2nd congressional district, this bill invests in water infrastructure initiatives that will help the Army Corps and our state and local partners continue to strengthen our economy. I have the privilege now of representing the city of Mobile, which is now home to the deepest port in the Gulf after a recent dredging project was recently completed. And with that, the port already generates a nearly $100 billion annually in economic activity for the state of Alabama, and that is only going to increase with the port's new capacity. And so now more than ever, it is critical that we are here making the necessary investments in sustaining not just the port, but all of our water resource needs across the district. That's why I was very happy to be able to secure provisions that authorizes nearly $50 million, or approximately $50 million in critical water and wastewater infrastructure improvements across my district as a whole. This will be in counties like Barber and Bullock and Butler and Crenshaw and Macon and Montgomery County, Pike County, Russell County. This responds to urgent water infrastructure needs across the district and the surrounding region. This will be funds that will be able to be utilized to help address the water challenges, the persistent water challenges in Pritchard, Alabama, which residents there, they lose 60% of their fresh drinking water before it ever reaches a tap. And so being able to secure resources to help fix that issue is something that is necessary and something that we are pleased to be able to do. But also persistent stormwater management issues across the district and critical water and infrastructure needs in places like Bullock and Butler counties, and some significant sewer issues that we have in my district. I have parts of my district that are too rural for public sewer service, yet the soil concentration is too dense for traditional septic systems to work. And so what that leads to is people literally running sewer lines out into the woods. And as primitive as that sounds, it is something that is pervasive across not just my district, but adjoining districts in the state of Alabama. So addressing those issues due to the health and environmental concerns raised by them is something that is significantly important and something that we're grateful to be able to do. We're also able to secure investments in studies that will help hopefully put us on the pathway to righting some historical wrongs and issues that have long been overdue to be addressed in this district. One of them is a study to identify the source of contamination affecting the water surrounding the Africatown community. For people that are not familiar with Africatown, listen, the Clotilda was the last known slave ship to arrive in the United States of America over 5 decades after the slave trade had been banned. And this community is where some of those survivors set up after the Civil War. It has long been plagued with industry that is developed in that area. And in fact, that part of the community now is incorporated into the city of Mobile. One of the issues that led to people supporting incorporation efforts back in 1960 was that well water was already contaminated then. And so being incentivized to get onto the city's public water source, even back in 1960. So these same issues that we're addressing now, and one of the studies that we've authorized is being able to determine the sources of contamination in the public water surrounding the Africatown community, because there are still persistent warnings not to consume fish from the public waters that surround that community. And so figuring that out will hopefully allow us to right some environmental injustices that have been happening there for far too long, but also a study to evaluate dredge material placement into Pinto Island and Blakely Island. Listen, we are also very, very happy to secure a provision in this year's WRDA that will effectively stop the dumping of thin layer dredged material into Mobile Bay. This is the process where dredged material to keep the port depth where it's supposed to be has literally just been spread into the bay. And any outdoorsman knows that that is a threat to wildlife, it's a threat to fishing, oysters, and just general outdoors enjoyment. And so being able to have the opportunity here in this bill to effectively ban that practice is something that is very important to us locally in the Mobile Bay area, and something that is just good practice. And so I'm looking forward to supporting this bill, and I encourage my colleagues to do the same. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Chair recognizes Mr. Burleson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very grateful to be on this committee, and particularly the Water Subcommittee, because I've been able to deliver wins for my district that have taken years and years in effort. The Water Resources Development Act is especially important to my district because it includes a provision that provides certainty for the hardworking property owners around Lake Taneycomo and Table Rock Lake in Missouri and Arkansas. Table Rock Lake is more than just a body of water. It is a treasured landmark in southwest Missouri and a crown jewel of the Ozarks, home to generational family homes, vacation cabins, and retirement homes that have been a part of this community for decades. Unfortunately, for many of these homeowners living on a Corps-managed lake has caused unnecessary challenges and headaches. Some property owners, through no fault of their own, built portions of their homes or placed their septic systems on core land due to unclear property lines at the time of the construction and purchase. Decades later, with satellite imaging, they were informed that by the Corps that they must demolish or relocate these structures, a process that would have been both expensive and deeply disruptive to their lives. I've literally been in the homes of retirees who put their entire retirement fortune into a beautiful property sitting over the lake, only to find out that they have to spend more than the entire value of their home just in these these costs. As one can imagine, relocating a septic system, which costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, or in some cases, relocating part of their entire home, is not a simple undertaking. For some of these constituents, the cost of compliance was estimated to be hundreds of thousands of dollars. And to address this, last Congress, I secured language in the WRDA bill to protect these homeowners from this kind of undue hardship without affecting any lake levels whatsoever. However, the bill was enacted, and after the bill was enacted, the Corps adopted a very narrow interpretation, literally telling the attorneys of this staff, of this committee, and the Senate staff committee that they disagreed with our attorney's interpretation of the provisions of the language, which left many of my constituents in the same position that they were before the passage. After working closely with the Assistant Secretary of the Army Corps Civil Works, Adam Tell, and his team, we developed a more comprehensive and durable solution to address these issues without provoking undue hardship on these homeowners. Section 227 and 228 of this legislation build upon Section 1323 of Thomas R. Carper Water Resource Development Act to make Congress's intent unmistakably clear. These provisions ensure that the structures and septic systems that homeowners have long relied upon can remain on Corps-managed land, providing certainty for families while preserving the integrity of the lake and its project. And I want to deeply thank Chairman Graves and Chairman Collins for their dedication to this issue and for their commitment to advocating for Missourians while ensuring a lasting and reasonable solution. I also want to thank Assistant Secretary Tell, General Graham, and General Walter of the Southwestern Division for working with me to develop a solution that protects homeowners while ensuring the integrity of the Corps' mission. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Mr. Stauber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise in support of the Water Resources Development Act of 2026. I want to start by thanking the Chairman, Chairman Graves and Ranking Member Larson for their leadership on this bipartisan legislation. Army Corps projects are especially critical to the Great Lakes maritime economy. The Great Lakes generate $3.1 trillion in gross domestic product and employ roughly 25.8 million people. The port of Duluth Superior and the Sioux Locks transport millions of tons of American mined taconite and iron ore every year. Ensuring that the water infrastructure in this region can support such commerce is essential to both our economy and our strategic national security. Further, Minnesotans fish, recreate, and spend time with their loved ones in lakes throughout the 8th District. These hallowed places are part of our way of life. It is important that they are maintained so future generations can enjoy all they have to offer. WRDA 2026 dutifully recognizes these realities. However, I especially appreciate the inclusion of several priorities advanced by my office. First, this legislation includes language requiring the Corps to establish a shoreline management plan for Big Sandy Lake in my district. Corps activities involving surveying and boundary stakes have sparked title disputes in this area. This provision will ensure that the Corps works closely with local stakeholders to determine the best use of this land while developing a means for landowners to purchase certain federally owned parcels in the future. Second, the bill requires the Corps employees who operate, repair, or maintain lock and dam equipment at the Sioux Locks be paid from the special wage rate schedule. This provision will help this important asset recruit and retain dedicated, skilled employees who keep commodities moving throughout the Great Lakes. Finally, WRDA 2026 includes $56 million for the Northeastern Minnesota Environmental Infrastructure Program, an essential program that assists non-federal interests in northern Minnesota. This includes the counties of Cook, Lake, St. Louis, Koochiching, Itasca, Cass, Crow Wing, Aiken, Carlton, Pine, Kennebec, Mille Lacs, Asante, and Chisago in my district. Importantly, this section of the bill updates Section 569 of the WRDA 1999 to expand eligibility for environmental infrastructure assistance in northeastern Minnesota to include Lake of the Woods County. When the provision was originally enacted, the eligible counties aligned with boundaries of Minnesota's 8th Congressional District. Following 2022 redistricting, however, Lake of the Woods County became part of current Minnesota 8, leaving the statutory language outdated. This technical correction has significant real-world consequences. The city of Baudette is working to replace failing water and sewer infrastructure serving the county's only affordable housing development. Despite years of coordination among the city, its Housing and Redevelopment Authority, engineers, funding partners, and regulators, the project has faced repeated delays. Ongoing sewer failures and backups have forced some housing units to be vacated, even as more than 20 families remain on a waiting list for affordable housing. By restoring Lake of the Woods County's eligibility, this provision reestablishes the legal authority needed for the Corps to move forward with a partnership agreement and construction, helping deliver reliable infrastructure and expand access to safe, affordable housing for the families who need it. Overall, this bill takes meaningful steps to help the Corps expedite projects, deliver on time for our constituents, and reduce the bloated bureaucracy that kills progress. It makes meaningful investments that support our infrastructure and economy while making sure those funds are spent effectively and efficiently. To put it simply, WRDA 2026 is a common sense and bipartisan bill that delivers for northern Minnesota and the American people. I urge my colleagues to support this legislation, and Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Anyone else wish to be heard on the bill? Seeing no one, we're now considering the bill for amendments. I recognize myself for the purposes of offering the manager's amendment. Please designate.
A manager's amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 9497, offered by Chairman Graves.
Without objection, the amendment will be considered as read. And I recognize myself real quick for a statement. The manager's amendment makes various technical corrections and some conforming changes to the bill. It incorporates more than 25 amendments filed by members that were agreed to through bipartisan collaboration between Ranking Member Larson and myself. And I want to thank Rick for working with me on this package, and I'd also like to thank all the members whose amendments were incorporated. With that, I yield back and recognize Mr. Garamendi for a statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Ranking Member Larson and I support the manager's amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute. The manager's amendment includes over 30 amendments that were filed and then negotiated and added to the bill, as well as several technical corrections. Importantly, this package also includes 6 new projects for construction authorization that the Corps submitted to Congress since the introduction of the base bill. With that, I yield back.
Mr. Van Drew.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise today in strong support of the manager's amendment. Before I begin, I want to thank Chairman Graves, Ranking Member Larson, and the outstanding team on transportation infrastructure for their tireless work on this bipartisan WRDA bill in general, and for including several priorities that are so important to the state of New Jersey and the United States of America, and particularly to coastal communities across this great country. First, I'm glad to see the inclusion of language to address one of the most persistent challenges facing our coast, hot spot erosion. For years, the Army Corps has watched places like the north end of Atlantic City, where we continue placing millions of cubic yards of sand on our beaches, only to watch much of it washed away later, literally in the same season. This is not a long-term solution. It's an expensive cycle that costs taxpayers millions of dollars while still leaving communities vulnerable and not curing the situation. The language included in the manager's amendment ensures the Corps can fully evaluate the engineering solutions needed to address these chronic erosion problems so we fix the underlying cause. Instead of simply replacing the same sand over and over and over again. This means better protection for our communities and significant savings for taxpayers over the long term. That's a great combination. The manager's amendment also helps protect one of New Jersey's greatest historic treasures, the East Point Lighthouse, by expanding the ongoing Morris River feasibility study to include the lighthouse and surrounding shoreline erosion. The Corps can evaluate long-term solutions to preserve this irreplaceable piece of America's maritime history before we lose it and it's too late. I've been working for years with my friend and colleague, Congresswoman Dina Titus, to address dam safety, and I'm very happy to see our Dams Act, including in the underlying bill. I know she is as well. It's also great to see an additional provision included in the manager's amendment that directs FEMA to evaluate how high-hazard potential dam projects are prioritized. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a serious business, and it's important for the safety of our nation. Communities deserve confidence that limited resources are being directed where they will provide the greatest absolute benefit to public safety. Hearing directly from the states and identifying ways to improve that process is just simply good, efficient government. Finally, I appreciate the inclusion of my provision with my friend Congresswoman Laura Gillen to study the creation of a coastal storm risk management trust fund. We need an ultimate cure and a real solvable situation, I believe, if we do it the right way. Our coastal infrastructure is our first line of defense, protecting homes, businesses, critical infrastructure, and local economies. We need a dedicated, reliable funding, permanent funding source. Let me put that word in there, permanent funding source to strengthen these projects before disaster strikes, not after disaster strikes. Mr. Chairman, this manager's amendment reflects exactly what WRDA should be about: practical solutions, fiscal responsibility, real infrastructure, stronger infrastructure, safer communities, and preserving the places that define our nation. Again, I thank Chairman Graves, Ranking Member Larson, my legislative partners, Reps Titus and Gillen, and the committee staff for all the amazing hard work they do and for their partnership, all of us together. I strongly urge my colleagues to support the manager's amendment. And Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Ms. Gillen.
Thank you, Chairman Graves and Ranking Member Larson, for holding this markup and for your bipartisan collaboration on this very important 2026 Water Resources Development Act. I'm proud to support the bill and the underlying manager's amendment, which includes language I secured to expedite the crucial Nassau County Back Bay's coastal storm risk management project to protect Long Island's South Shore from flooding. Mr. Chairman, Hurricane Sandy devastated Long Island and our communities in New York's 4th Congressional District, causing billions of dollars worth of damage. As we deal with rising sea levels and stronger, more frequent storms, we must provide the coastal communities I represent with the federal resources we need to enhance our resiliency and protect our residents and our property. For a decade, the Army Corps has been engaged in a study to examine how we can reduce storm damage, flooding, and coastal erosion in Nassau County's back bays. Some of the most vulnerable areas like Freeport, East Rockaway, Oceanside, Island Park, the Five Towns, Long Beach, Lido Beach, Point Lookout lie within this area and deal with severe flooding on a regular basis. As supervisor of the town of Hempstead, I fought to keep federal dollars flowing to this project and to support resiliency of our coastal communities. In 2021, the Army Corps released a draft report with recommendations to reduce the risk of flood damage. However, since 2021, the Army Corps has not completed the final feasibility study, nor has it issued the chief's report, the crucial steps necessary to begin the next stage towards construction. My amendment would require the Army Corps to report on the current status of the project and to expedite and advance this crucial project one step further to protect us from the next storm. I'd also like to take a moment to highlight some other major wins for Long Island in this package that I was proud to help secure. These include $11 million for Garden City to address lead pipe replacement, $25 million for water main upgrades in Long Beach, $3.3 million for stormwater pumps in Freeport, $130,000 for flood mitigation in Lawrence, and tens of millions more for water and wastewater infrastructure across Nassau County. This bill also authorizes new studies to mitigate flooding in Reynolds Channel and Atlantic Beach, to dredge Bannister Bay and Lawrence. And I'm proud that this package includes my bipartisan bill, the Coastal Infrastructure Improvement Act, which would authorize the Army Corps to carry out research and development on innovative coastal erosion technologies to protect our environment, prevent erosion, and save taxpayers' dollars. Thank you so much to my Republican colleague, Mr. Van Drew, for working with me on this very important legislation. Mr. Chairman, together these investments and policy proposals represent a comprehensive commitment to Long Island and to the South Shore's water infrastructure and coastal resilience. In closing, I encourage all of my colleagues to join me in supporting the manager's amendment and the underlying legislation, and with that, I yield back.
Gentlelady yields. Chair recognizes Mr. Brian Mast, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, we've worked a lot on this committee to deal with South Florida water issues, and I think we can reflect back and say that for over a century, the water management in South Florida was an absolute disaster for Lake Okeechobee, for the Florida Everglades, for the estuaries on the east and west coastlines of the state. It killed wildlife, it triggered public health emergencies, shut down businesses up and down my Treasure Coast area. It was a disaster. And so what did this committee do? This committee has gone to work year after year on the Water Resource Development Act to find ways to mitigate and fix these problems. In 2017, we secured $150 million for Everglades restoration as we went into the appropriations cycle, $82 million to rehabilitate the Herbert Hoover Dike so that the Corps of Engineers couldn't go and tell us every single year that this dike may fail, so we have to dump this dirty, toxic water on you. And we delivered $76.5 million for the South Florida ecosystem restoration to help repair the damage done to the Florida Everglades. And we put money behind restoring the Kissimmee River, which long before any of us was here, the U.S. Army took a river that snaked like a river and they turned it into a channel, again, destroying another ecosystem. And we undid that damage and made it look like a river again. And in 2019, we delivered $60 million to raise up the Tamiami Trail so that water could flow south, into the Everglades where it belongs. Year after year, just more and more work. We worked to redo the broken management plan known as the Lake Okeechobee Regulation Schedule and move towards a new one called the Lake Okeechobee System Operating Manual. Just year after year through this committee, we have worked to fix the water issues of South Florida. And this year, with President Trump's support, we delivered the highest ever funding for Everglades restoration. So I'm thankful to everybody's work for dealing with these issues. Now, back in 2018, when we drafted this same bill, I pushed the Army Corps to write a new rule book, which I just mentioned, for how they manage water in Lake Okeechobee. It's called the Lake Okeechobee System Operating Manual, or LOSOM. And the whole point of that was to get the Corps to stop dumping lake water into our east and west coast estuaries like the St. Lucie River. Now, why? The St. Lucie is a saltwater estuary. It's salt. And the seagrass is different than the seagrass in the lake, in the freshwater lake. And when the Corps dispenses all of that fresh lake water into the saltwater estuaries, the seagrass dies. And as the seagrass dies, the ecosystems follow and they die as well. And LOSOM was supposed to prevent that from happening any longer. But seagrass grows in Lake Okeechobee, as I said, a different kind, freshwater seagrass. And in that management plan, they put in something known as lake recovery operations. And that was just a justification to, again, dump the fresh water from Lake Okeechobee out into the coastal estuary. And there's only one way to lower that lake, and it's to dump water out of it. And when that water has to go somewhere, They open up a levee separating the lake from the St. Lucie River on my coast, as an example, and they pump that water out. So the Corps floods our estuaries for a patch of grass in the lake, a different kind of grass. And on the other side of the levee, they kill off acres of seagrass that we're not looking for that fresh water that it kills off. This is exactly what the new rule book was written to stop, but it's still taking place. So what does my amendment do? It makes the Corps come back and show us their work. Why did they pull the trigger? When did they pull the trigger? How much water went through each structure? And where did it go? And did it actually recover seagrass that it was supposed to? Or did it do more harm than good? Because it makes no sense to grow grass in the lake if you're killing off even more grass on the other side of the levee. This is robbing Peter to pay Paul, and it should make no sense to anybody. So I'm grateful this was included in the manager's amendment, and I want to thank the chairman for working with me on it. I also want to thank for the work on the Atlantic Intercoastal Waterway, one of the most important inland navigation routes in the country, the Jupiter Inlet. We are doing an examination to study should the Jupiter Inlet be a part of that intercoastal waterway system. It is a huge system for marine navigation across our area, and I want to thank the committee for working on a provision to examine adding that to the intercoastal waterway system as well. Very important for my community, and I thank the committee for the work on it. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Are there any other speakers on this amendment? Seeing none, are there amendments to the amendment? Seeing none, the question is on the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed signify by saying nay. The ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to. We're now considering the bill for amendments. For what purpose does Mr. Stanton seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
An amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 9497, offered by Mr. Stanton, number 125.
Without objection, the amendment will be considered as read. Mr. Stanton is recognized for 5 minutes to speak on his amendment.
This amendment would reduce the non-federal cost share down to 10% for economically disadvantaged communities under the Section 595 Western Rural Water Program, increasing access to this program to those who need it most. This isn't a handout. This is establishing parity, equal treatment for communities across environmental infrastructure programs. We've done this before in a bipartisan fashion. WRDA 2024 lowered non-federal cost share for Ohio and North Dakota and parts of Virginia, Missouri, California, and Washington State. There's a great need for water infrastructure investments in Arizona and the rest of the western states. Our small, rural, and tribal communities often have the greatest needs but the fewest financial resources, like the city of Globe, Arizona, which suffered a devastating flood last fall but never received an emergency declaration. This left a small town surrounded by federal land, unable to raise millions to rebuild their downtown and repair the stormwater infrastructure to prevent future flooding disasters. A 25% federal match is a heavy lift for Globe and many others. I've heard time and time again for local leaders that the cost share can be the difference between moving a worthy project forward or leaving an infrastructure need unmet. Chairman Yucapicillo of the Pasco Yaqui tribe in Arizona previously testified before this committee. While they were able to break ground on a critical water supply project through my Arizona Environmental Infrastructure Authority, the tribe called this committee's attention to the fact that only a small number of tribes in EI-eligible states have applied for and received aid through the program. These programs are essential to securing reliable water supplies, but still, too few tribes and disadvantaged communities can overcome the financial barriers. As WRDA negotiations continue with the Senate, I urge my colleagues to join me in recognizing the need for parity across the programs and support addressing these barriers so that every eligible community can participate. Thank you very much. Now, out of respect for the bipartisan agreement made between the chair and the ranking member and some slight arm twisting by the ranking member, I will withdraw my amendment.
Without objection. For what purpose does Mr. Crawford seek recognition?
I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
An amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 9497, offered by Mr. Crawford, number 074.
Without objection, the amendment will be considered as read. Mr. Crawford is recognized for 5 minutes to speak on his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to start by thanking you and the staff and your leadership helping move certain counties within my district out of the Little Rock District to the Memphis and Vicksburg districts. This is an important step forward as it lays the groundwork for ultimately placing the Little Rock District under the Mississippi Valley Division, where its mission and responsibilities are more appropriately aligned. My amendment is common sense and practical. It specifically focuses on the Mississippi River Basin and proper leadership within the basin. The realignment of the Little Rock District from the Southwestern Division to the Mississippi Valley Division is a logical and strategic decision that will strengthen mission execution without creating adverse effects. This proposal does not alter the mission of the Little Rock District, its workforce, its responsibilities, or its policies. The only change being made is transferring operational oversight to a core division that is more closely aligned with the district's day-to-day mission. The Little Rock District's Civil Works portfolio is almost entirely dedicated to the Mississippi River Basin. The majority of the district's Civil Works responsibilities involve managing the Arkansas River, the White River, and numerous other rivers and tributaries that directly influence the Mississippi River system. These waterways don't operate independently. They function as one interconnected watershed that requires coordinated planning, water management, navigation, flood risk reduction, and ecosystem restoration. Because these river systems are so interconnected, decisions made on one portion of the basin frequently affect conditions elsewhere. Managing them effectively requires unity of effort across the entire watershed. The Mississippi Valley Division was created with the exact mission in mind. It possesses the institutional knowledge, technical expertise, and operational focus necessary to oversee the Mississippi River and its tributaries as one integrated system. By placing the Little Rock District under the Mississippi Valley Division, the Corps would improve coordination, streamline decision-making, and strengthen management of the entire basin. In contrast, the Southwestern Division's primary operational focus is centered on the watersheds such as the Brazos River and the Rio Grande and other southwestern river systems, not the Mississippi River and its tributaries. While those missions are critically important as well, they are fundamentally different from the operational challenges associated with the Mississippi River Basin. Realigning the Little Rock District would ensure that operational priorities, hydraulic management, navigation responsibilities, and flood risk management are overseen by a division that specializes in those areas within the Mississippi River watershed. In the end, the missions remain the same, the people remain the same, the policies stay the same. The only thing that changes is placing the Little Rock District under the division whose mission, priorities, and expertise are already centered on the watershed it serves every day. That said, although this policy change is necessary and provides significant benefits not only to my constituents in the state of Arkansas, but to the entire Mississippi River system and the Corps of Engineers, I will be withdrawing the amendment. I will remain committed to working with the chairman and ranking member to advance this important realignment, and that said, I will yield back.
Without objection, the amendment is withdrawn. For what purpose does Ms. Davis seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
An amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 9497, offered by Ms. Davids, number 078.
Without objection, the amendment will be considered as read. Ms. Davids is recognized for 5 minutes to speak on her amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As many know, engineering and architectural services are critical to the work of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. These professionals provide essential services like production and delivery of designs, plans, drawings, and specifications for public works and utilities. The Corps relies on private sector engineering companies like those in Kansas City to support their internal capacity and provide specialized skills. A 6% fee limitation for architectural and engineering services on federal projects was first introduced in 1939 as a cost control measure to support the nation's urgent defense buildup ahead of World War II. However, I've heard from my constituent companies that the outdated fee cap is not representative of the cost of architecture and engineering, which vary greatly depending on the project and scope of services. We addressed this issue through Section 2881 of the NDAA for fiscal year 2024, raising the cap to 10% for the departments of Army, Navy, and Air Force. According to some experts, this increase better reflects the value of innovation in this space and allows firms to cover the rising costs of labor, among other business costs. I'd like to commend the committee for including a GAO study in the base text of this bill to analyze this issue, but I offer this amendment to create parity with a law we've already passed. Parity our constituent companies have told us they need to remain competitive. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentlelady yields. Did you offer withdrawal?
Mr. Chairman, I plan to withdraw the amendment, but would certainly love to have the committee's assurances that we can keep working on this issue.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
Without
Mr.
objection.
Chairman. I withdraw my amendment and yield back.
Without objection. Who?
Ms. Poe.
Without objection, Ms. Poe, will you recognize for 5 minutes?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to take this opportunity to thank my colleague from Kansas for offering this amendment. When Congress puts a fee cap on architectural and engineering services for federal projects, it was in 1939, nearly 90 years ago. Like the times themselves, engineering and architectural efforts were a bit simpler back then. But today we're in a more complex world which requires more complex engineering and planning. I understand that the Defense Department has increased the engineering fee limitations to 10% in the military setting, above the 6% that currently applies to the Corps and civil work projects. While we appreciate that the committee included language to study this disparity, this amendment would put a finer point on ensuring fairness and balance. We want to ensure that the Army Corps can access high-quality, innovative design and planning, mitigating risks later while also improving performance in the life cycle of needed projects. I am committed to working with Representative Davis and the committee on this issue and addressing disparity for our engineers. Our communities rightly want high-quality project designs with high returns on investment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields. For what purpose does Ms. Strickland seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
An amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 9497, offered by Ms. Strickland, number 089.
Without objection, the amendment will be considered as read. Ms. Strickland is recognized for 5 minutes to speak on her amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment authorizes the Northwest Regional Commission, which Congress already funded in the fiscal year 2026 appropriations law. This commission will help deliver critical infrastructure and drive economic development in distressed communities across the states of Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Montana. It focuses on rural communities. As many members of this committee know, regional commissions are not new. They already exist. So far, we have the Appalachian Regional Commission, Delta Regional Authority, Denali Commission, Northern Border Regional Commission, Southwest Border Regional Commission, to name a few. A January 2025 report from the Brookings Institution found that regional commissions are uniquely effective at delivering critical infrastructure in rural, underserved communities, reaching places that traditional federal programs may struggle to serve, and doing so with modest budgets. Many communities across Washington State and the Pacific Northwest face long-term economic challenges. They are the hardest hit by the transition away from traditional industries and shifting labor markets. As you all know, aging infrastructure, such as wastewater systems that are in poor condition or deficient broadband infrastructure, is both a contributor to economic distress and an obstacle to growth. It holds back the people who live in those communities. Many of these communities lack the capacity to develop infrastructure projects. They may not have the borrowing capacity or the tax base to finance them and meet matching requirements. Recognizing these challenges, Congress has already appropriated $1 million to establish a Northwest Regional Commission serving these distressed communities in Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Montana. But because this committee never authorized, again, because this committee did not authorize, those funds that Congress approved cannot be spent. My amendment provides the authorization needed to stand up the commission that Congress funded. I'm disappointed that this did not make it past negotiations. And what we heard was that despite evidence to the contrary, regional commissions are in fact money well spent. Congress should not create new commissions. That's what we were told. But Congress has already acknowledged the need for a Northwest Regional Commission by already committing money towards it. So instead, this money is sitting idle instead of being put to work for the rural communities that Congress intended to help. Mr. Chair, it's unfortunate that there's no path forward for this today, so I'm going to withdraw my amendment, but I encourage my colleagues in the Senate to ensure that this investment can finally reach the communities in the Northwest, especially those who need our help the most. I yield back, Mr. Chair.
Gentlelady yields. Chair recognizes Mr. Larson for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I asked the chair to not recognize your offer to withdraw until I spoke on it, Representative, but I just want to note this amendment would establish a Northwest Regional Commission to support local economic development in the Pacific Northwest, including Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana. And I support the creation of this commission that is modeled after existing regional commissions. Such a commission would enable states within the Pacific Northwest to fund coordinated economic development initiatives that range from workforce development to salmon habitat restoration. This commission, as noted, has already been funded at $1 million by a previous Interior Environment Appropriations Bill. And now Congress needs to pass the authority that will allow the Northwest to access this funding. Unfortunately, this amendment is outside the scope of the Water Resources Development Act, and therefore I do need to oppose it pursuant to a Big Four agreement. However, I do want to thank Representative Strickland for her work to advocate for the establishment of this commission and for bringing the matter before us today, and we'll have opportunities in the future to address the creation of the commission. With that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Ms. Strickland, do you still intend to withdraw the amendment?
I'll ask my ranking member, do I intend to withdraw my amendment?
Yes, you do.
Without objection.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I intend to withdraw my amendment.
Without objection.
That's good.
For what purpose does Mr. Babin seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
An amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 9497, offered by Mr. Babin, number 036.
Without objection, the amendment will be considered as read. Mr. Babin is recognized for 5 minutes to speak on his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to thank not only you, but Ranking Member Larson for your work on this very important legislation. I offer this amendment today to improve how Harbor Maintenance Trust Fund dollars are distributed to our nation's energy transfer ports. The Water Resources Reform and Development Act of 2014 allocated Harbor Maintenance Trust Fund funds to energy transfer ports that move millions of tons of energy products through our ports each and every year. The Port of Houston, located in my district, is among the nation's largest energy transfer ports and plays a vital role in America's energy security and economy. Unfortunately, the current allocation formula is based on a per-state distribution rather than on the actual volume of energy commodities that are handled by each port. And as a result, the ports that handle significantly more energy products are not being treated proportionally under the current law. My amendment would simply provide a more equitable distribution by allocating these funds based on the total energy commodity tonnage handled at each energy transfer port and ensuring that funding better reflects the critical role that these ports play in supporting our national economy and our energy dominance. I appreciate the committee's willingness to continue discussing this issue, Mr. Chairman. If I can get your commitment to continue the conversation and work with my team to potentially revisit this proposal as water continues to move through this legislative process, I will withdraw my amendment for now to avoid delaying this markup. Do I have your
Yes, we'll work,
cooperation?
yes, we will. We'll work with it
Okay, thank you very much. I want to say thank you, and I will withdraw my amendment.
without objection. For what purpose does Mr. Ball seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a speaker, I have a amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
An amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 9497, offered by Mr. Bost, number 035.
Without objection, the amendment will be considered as read. Mr. Boss is recognized for 5 minutes to speak on his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to thank the ranking member, Larson, and the chairman's leadership in Bipartisan Water Resource Development Act. I appreciate the tremendous amount of work that has gone into this legislation. I strongly support advancing the bill forward. Today, though, I am offering an amendment related to my bill, H.R. 1285, the Water Infrastructure Subcontractor and Taxpayer Protection Act. I believe we have both an opportunity and a responsibility to strengthen protections for taxpayers, subcontractors, and the federal government on all water infrastructure projects. As many of my colleagues know, payment and performance bonds have protected federal construction projects for nearly a century. They ensure taxpayers receive the projects they paid for, while also protecting the small businesses and subcontractors that perform the work for bearing the financial consequences if a prime contractor fails. While new and innovative delivery methods have become more popular for protecting delivery, not all are required by law to have bonding protection, posing a significant threat to taxpayers, workers, and small businesses. It is critical that a long-standing protection offered by payment and performance bonds are in place on all projects where taxpayer dollars are at stake, regardless of the procurement vehicle selected. I'm recognized that this is an issue that deserves thoughtful consideration and continued discussion with the committee. I also recognize that this legislation has garnered significant bipartisan and bicameral support that warrants additional attention from this committee. Mr. Chairman, I understand that you and the ranking member intend to continue the committee's work on additional water infrastructure protection later this year, and that there will be other opportunities for the committee to consider measures that could be accommodated in today's markup. I appreciate your willingness to continue to work, and today I would like to get a commitment from you and Ranking Member Larson in agreement to hold an additional markup this year on water infrastructure priorities to give H.R. 1285 the full consideration it deserves as part of the process.
We commit to working together.
With that understanding, and in interest of moving forward with the water bill today on a bipartisan basis, I want to withdraw my amendment, and I thank the chair, and I yield back.
Without objection. For what purpose does Mr. Van Drew seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
Clerk will designate the amendment.
An amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 9497, offered by Mr. Van Drew, number 129.
Without objection, the amendment will be considered as read. Mr. Van Drew is recognized for 5 minutes to speak on his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment addresses the Hereford Inlet and Cape May Inlet Coastal Storm Risk Reduction Project in Cape May County, New Jersey. I would like to ensure that the first phase of the project takes place entirely within the jurisdiction of North Wildwood, and that the sand used for the project comes from the Hereford Inlet Beach, or other local sources. North Wildwood has experienced years of severe and problematic erosion. Every major coastal storm brings renewed concern for the residents, the businesses, and critical infrastructure that depends on a healthy, protective beach. Mr. Chairman, this is simply not about rebuilding a beach. It is about protecting lives. It's about protecting homes. It's about protecting businesses. It's about ensuring this community has the same level of protection that so many other coastal communities have already received. This project is intended as a regional solution, But that approach has faced significant implementation challenges. Meanwhile, North Wildwood continues to experience substantial, severe shoreline loss, while the ongoing general reevaluation program and report works towards a long-term solution for the entire project area. This amendment addresses immediate public safety and public safety concerns, while the Corps completes its broader planning efforts. I've had productive conversations with this committee, and I sincerely appreciate their willingness to engage on this issue. I look forward to continuing to work with the committee, the Corps of Engineers, and all interested stakeholders to pursue other avenues that can advance this project, whether through the ongoing general reevaluation report, future water legislation, administrative actions, or any other appropriate mechanisms that are needed. We have to deal with this. Everyone involved in this project shares the same objective: to get meaningful coastal protection delivered to the people of North Wildwood as quickly as possible. They deserve no less. The people of North Wildwood have waited long enough, and I will continue to working until they receive the protection that they deserve, like everyone else. With that understanding and the spirit of continuing to work collaboratively with the committee to find the best path forward, I ask the chairman if the chairman and staff and ranking member will work with me on this very important issue.
Yes, we will.
I thank the chairman. I thank you, Mr. Chairman, and in that case, I will be withdrawing my amendment for future work, and I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection. For what purpose does Mr. Perry seek recognition?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment to desk.
Clerk will designate the amendment.
An amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 9497, offered by Mr. Perry, number 327.
Without objection, the amendment will be considered as read. Mr. Perry is recognized for 5 minutes to speak on his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment would stop the U.S. Army Corps from promulgating or enforcing any firearm prohibitions at water resources development projects so long as the person is not otherwise prohibited from owning a firearm and subject to state law. This would harmonize USACE's treatment of firearm possession with those of other federal land agencies such as the National Park Service and Bureau of Land Management. USACE's proposed rolling back its broad-based firearm possession prohibition during the end of President Trump's first term, but this action was never completed. This language mirrors a provision included in the House version of the Energy and Water Appropriations Act every fiscal year since we reclaimed the majority FYs 24, 5, 6, and 7. This amendment simply restores the Second Amendment rights of Americans if they are on Army Corps property. The God-given rights of Americans shouldn't end just because they cross an arbitrary line into USACE's jurisdiction or property. With that, I urge adoption and yield the balance.
Gentleman yields. Chair recognizes Ms. Davids for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. The ranking member opposes the amendment offered by Mr. Perry. For decades, the Corps has allowed law enforcement and hunters to freely possess loaded firearms on Corps property, but has required others to obtain written permission to possess a firearm on Corps lands. This reasonable regulation recognizes two critical realities. One, that Corps park rangers do not have law enforcement authority. And two, there is a security risk in having unrestricted firearms close to critical national infrastructure, such as dams, navigation locks, and hydroelectric facilities. The ranking member opposes this amendment and encourages all members to do the same. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Do any members wish to speak on this amendment, be recognized on this amendment? Mr. Hurd, you want to speak on this?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do support this amendment, but I'd like to use my time to speak in support of the underlying bill. I'm proud to support this important legislation that provides critical support to America's water infrastructure and helps support the growing economy in western and southern Colorado. Amid increasing partisanship that we see in this body, the fact that Congress has been able to move WRDA every 2 years since 2014 is a testament to the serious bipartisan nature of this legislation. This bill modernizes our nation's waterway infrastructure through a bottom-up approach, consulting our local U.S. Army Corps districts and the project owners they work with on which projects are ready and in need of feasibility studies or construction authorization. This ensures that we craft a WRDA bill that fully supports our local needs and relies on the feedback of people who are closest on the ground in dealing with these issues every single day. I'm particularly proud that this bill includes my request to include Colorado among states eligible for Section 595 Environmental Infrastructure Authority, which supports water infrastructure development in rural western states while authorizing up to $150 million in project authority for projects within the Centennial State. While Colorado is the headwater state for many western states already included in the program, Colorado has not been eligible to access the same Section 595 core authorities as these other states have. The Section 595 program provides design and construction assistance for projects that deal with critical issues such as flood risk management, wastewater treatment, and drought resilience, which are all important for rural communities in my district in western and southern Colorado. I'm proud that this bill helps support these communities and ensures that they have access to these federal resources. I want to thank Chairman Graves, Ranking Member Larson, Water Resources and Environment Subcommittee Chairman Collins, and Ranking Member Wilson, as well as the amazing T&I committee staff for putting this strong legislation together, and I look forward to advancing it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With that, I yield back.
Gentlemen, yield. Do any members wish to be recognized on this amendment? Are there any further speakers on this amendment? Seeing none, are there any amendments to the amendment? Seeing none, the question on the amendment is all in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed say no. Nay. The nays have it, and the amendment is not agreed to.
Mr. Chairman, I request a recorded vote.
Recorded vote is requested. The gentleman requests a recorded vote on the amendment as previously announced pursuant to Committee Rule 6F. Further proceedings on the question are postponed. For what purpose does Mr. Owens seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to briefly flag an amendment that I will not be offering to the vote today. It would extend to the Army Corps Civil Works the same construction.
Clerk needs to designate. Just a second. The clerk will designate the amendment.
An amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 9497, offered by Mr. Owens, number 051.
Without objection, the amendment will be considered as read. Mr. Owens is recognized for 5 minutes on his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to briefly flag an amendment I won't be offering to vote today. It would extend to the Army Corps Civil Works the same construction authority the Department of War already has, speeding up projects while keeping full completion and full bonding protections in place. At the end of the day, it's about speed, accelerating delivery and much-needed infrastructure for communities across the country. We work closely with stakeholders on both sides of the issue to get the language to a strong place, and I believe it bridges the concerns we heard earlier. With that being said, we still have some work to do with the Corps directly. So at this time, Mr. Chair, I'd ask unanimous consent to withdraw the amendment. I look forward to working with the committee going forward. Also like to echo the need for this committee to hold an additional markup this year on priorities in the water infrastructure space. Thank you, and I yield back.
Without objection, the amendment is withdrawn, and the committee will work with you in going forward. The committee will now stand in recess.
passage, you just say they're recording votes, so we'll postpone proceedings, then we'll do GSA and then WARDA.
Why do I have to say that? We've already said it. Transportation Infrastructure will reconvene the previously recessed markup. For what purpose does Mr. Mast seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to speak on an amendment I have for a moment.
Designate.
An amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 9497, offered by Mr. Mast, number 178, revision 1.
Without objection, the amendment will be considered as read. Mr. Mast, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In 2018, members of this committee authorized what was known as the Everglades Agricultural Area Reservoir. Massive project, 17,000-acre project, stores 78 billion gallons of water to clean water and send that water south through Florida into the Florida Everglades and into the Florida Bay. And it had to be cleaned before it goes into the Everglades because that lake water that comes out of it's so dirty, it was making the Everglades very dirty. So we voted to authorize it. We voted to fund it with every federal dollar that we've spent and had it matched by the state government as well. So great project. This has been a partnership for more than 2 decades, no matter who was in charge. Everyone from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the state of Florida, Governor DeSantis, the South Florida Water Management District, who is the local sponsor, have all made it very clear in their own words what this project is and why it's being funded. And I would appreciate the opportunity for Congress to do the same. This puts in writing exactly what we authorized and exactly what we spent money on. It's not my words. It is the words of the Corps of Engineers. It is the words of the Florida governor why this project exists, and it's a number of important reasons. Eliminate harmful transfers to the St. Lucie estuary is one. Reducing harmful transfers of water to the Caloosahatchee River is one. Reducing harmful transfers to the Lake Worth Lagoon is one. And sending water south so that it doesn't cause any harm. That is these are the project purposes, that water that comes out of Lake Okeechobee, while also protecting and meeting water supply goals south of the lake, consistent with congressionally authorized project purposes, which have been longstanding. This is what we voted for, and that's what we spent billions of taxpayer dollars on. And years from now, we don't want anybody to rewrite that history. We spent nearly a decade and billions on building this. And again, every federal construction contract has been now signed, including a $2.8 billion contract to build the embankment. This year, we've delivered a record $461 million in Everglades restoration funding. So again, great work by this committee, by the Appropriations Committee, bipartisanly. I appreciate everybody's work. And I would just say it would be moronic for us to build this and not use it. And so glad to see that it's being built. This plan is in place. We will keep the pressure on until we're over the finish line. And again, I urge my colleagues to support, and I thank you for their support, and I yield back.
Ms. Davids.
Thank you, Chairman. One of the reasons the Corps efforts to restore the Florida Everglades have been so successful is because of the tradition of elected leaders, local stakeholders, and the Corps working hand in hand to address the unique needs of the region in a nonpartisan manner. The ranking member is glad to hear that we have found a consensus approach to the amendment for Mr. Mast, and the ranking member would like to thank all members for working together on this one. This amendment is a sense of Congress on the Everglades Agricultural Area Project, which we know many members on and off the committee strongly support. As such, the ranking member supports the revised amendment for Mr. Mast. I yield back.
Mr. Webster.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This sense of Congress amendment reflects a high-level goals and in no way is intended to change how federal authorized programs and projects relating to SERP and to Lake Okeechobee are managed by the Corps. I'd also like to say that We want to make note that we worked with Representative Mass' office to, for the report language amendment, which is in the compromise bill and the manager's amendment, so yield back.
Does anyone else wish to be heard on the amendment? I might say that I appreciate both sides working together on this. Both sides came a long way, and it is very much appreciated. Seeing no one else, are there any amendments to the amendment? Seeing none, the question is on the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed signify by saying nay. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. What purpose does Mr. Onder rise? By the way, before you speak, Mr. Onder, we're getting ready to vote, so make sure everybody, staff, make sure your members back in the committee room because we're going to vote on the postponed amendments here pretty quickly and bills. Mr. Onder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment.
Designate.
An amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 9497, offered by Mr. Onder, number 031.
Without objection, the amendment will be considered as read. Mr. Onder, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My amendment makes a straightforward clarification to the definition of a major rehabilitation project within the Inland Waterways system. It clarifies that Inland Waterways Trust Fund is used to rehabilitate navigation locks, while dam features continue to be treated under longstanding federal policy. This is a technical clarification, but it has important implications for how rehabilitation costs are shared. The distinction matters because navigation users are currently the only beneficiaries of the Inland Waterways system who are required to help pay for rehabilitating these dams. Even though the dams provide benefits that extend far beyond navigation. They provide flood control, municipal, industrial, and agricultural water supply, hydroelectric generation, recreation, and fish and wildlife habitat. They are public benefits enjoyed by communities across the country. The federal dam safety projects have traditionally been funded through general revenues because a dam failure can have catastrophic consequences. Inland waterway dams perform these same critical public safety functions and should be treated consistently. Earlier this year, I joined at least 29 members of Congress from both sides of the aisle, including members on and off this committee, in requesting that this clarification be included in WRDA 2026. Although I'm disappointed that it wasn't included in the base bill or the manager's amendment, I appreciate the committee's willingness to continue discussing this issue. At the end of the day, this is an issue of fairness. Navigation users should not be expected to bear the cost of rehabilitating infrastructure that serves the entire public, not just navigation. I look forward to continuing to work with the committee and my colleagues to find a solution. And with that, I move the adoption of the amendment.
Mr. Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I oppose the amendment that Mr. Onder has offered. This amendment amounts to a cost share shift for projects on the inland system, which this committee has already acted on in the last 3 WRDA bills. To continue shifting these costs onto the Corps' general fund would mean taking funds away from other critical projects for flood risk reduction or ecosystem restoration. It also means less funds for essentially any project that is not on the inland waterways system. Further, we have no firm estimate on the dollar amounts we would be shifting, so the range of impacts on core funds could be larger than anticipated. And for those reasons, with all due respect to Mr. Onder and the needs of the inland waterway system, I do oppose this amendment. With that, I yield back.
Does anyone else wish to be heard on the amendment? Seeing none, are there any amendments to the amendment? Seeing none, the question is on the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed signify by saying nay. It appears the nays have it. The gentleman is requested a recorded vote, as previously announced pursuant to Committee Rule 6F. Further proceedings on the question will be postponed. Again, as noted, there are recorded votes to amendments requested. So pursuant to Committee Rule 6F, further proceedings on the measure. Oh. Are postponed. Are there any let's see, where are we? All right. Right, the committee previously postponed proceedings on the GSA resolutions in block. The question is now on the GSA resolutions in block, which are agreed to by voice vote. Is a recorded vote still requested? The recorded vote is still requested. So we're going to hold this vote open for a little while till we get everybody in here. We'll go ahead and open the board. The chairman will be voting aye.
Ranking will vote aye.
Just pack stuff and then, but helping other people.
Andrew just got it.
Have all members been recorded who wish to be recorded?
Don't need to sit down and vote, Jeff. Let's get on.
Do any members wish to change their vote? Hearing none, close the board and report the total.
On that vote, there are 41 yeas and 24 nays.
By a vote of 41 nays, 24 yeas. Did I get it right? Yeah, 41 yeas, 24 nays. The resolution in block is agreed to and approved. Next. The committee previously postponed proceedings on H.R. 9497, WRDA. The question is now on the amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 9497, previously postponed. First, Amendment 327 offered by Mr. Perry, Pennsylvania, which a recorded vote was ordered and which was not agreed to by voice voters. A recorded vote still requested. Yes. A recorded vote is still requested. Members will record their votes using the electronic voting system. The chairman intends to vote no.
Ranking to vote no.
Open the board. How close is Barrett? Have all members been recorded who wish to be recorded? Seeing none, do any members wish to change their vote? Hearing none, close the board and report the total.
On that vote, there are 30 yeas and 35 nays.
I voted 30 yeas and 35 nays. The amendment is not agreed to. Next, amendment number 31031 offered by Mr. Onder, in which a recorded vote was ordered, which was not agreed to by voice voters. A recorded vote still requested. A recorded
He withdrew his request for a recorded vote, so no recorded vote is
So no recorded? Okay. Thank you. The question is now on the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 9497 as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed signify by saying nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The amendment in the nature of a substitute as amended is agreed to. The question is now on the adoption of and favorably reporting of H.R. 9497 as amended to the House of Representatives. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed signify by saying nay. The ayes have it. the bill as amended.
Take a recorded vote.
Recorded vote has been requested. Members will record their votes using the electronic voting system. The chairman intends to vote aye.
Rankin vote aye.
Open the board. Has everyone voted that intends to vote? Does any member wish to change their vote? Close the board and report the total.
On that vote, there are 66 yeas and 0 nays.
A vote is 66 yeas and zero nays. The bill as amended is agreed to and offered favorably reported to the House. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Thank you for participating in today's markup. I'd ask unanimous consent that each measure ordered reported today be reported as a single amendment in the nature of a substitute incorporating all amendments adopted. Without objection, that is so ordered. I'd ask unanimous consent that the staff be authorized to make all necessary technical, clarifying, and conforming changes to each of the measures ordered reported today to reflect the actions of the committee. And without objection, that is so ordered. Pursuant to House Rule 22, Clause 1, I'd ask unanimous consent that the chairman or his designee be authorized to offer such motions as may be necessary to the House and go to conference with the Senate on the legislation adopted today in any similar measure. Without objection, that is so ordered. I'd ask unanimous consent that the chairman, after consultation with the ranking member, have authority to strike or revise any provision or measure of ordering reported today, measures ordered reported today that would cause a sequential referral to another committee or that would cause the bill to be subject to a budget Act or Rule 21, cut-go point of order. Without objection, that is so ordered. Pursuant to House Rule 11, Clause 2L, I'd ask unanimous consent that all members of the committee have at least 2 calendar days in which to file any supplemental, minority, additional, or dissenting views on the legislation adopted today. Without objection, that is so ordered. Pursuant to Rule 6F, the rules of the Committee on Transportation Infrastructure, I note the presence of a quorum for all actions taken for all committee business today. And with that, thank you everyone for being here. The Committee on Transportation Infrastructure has completed its business. Committee is adjourned.